the early days, oh, a better nation, fair and free, Scotland.
Hello, this is Scottish Independence Podcast episode number 164. And usually around about Christmas time, New Year, I put out something with all the best bits from that year. However, I've not had so much time this year, and some of you will know the reason for that, which is that our son was born about 5 weeks premature a few weeks back. And then there were a few complications with his mother, rather than with him. He's fine, she's getting better. So that's the reason my online presence has been just about zero for quite a while. I'd like to thank all of you who gave us your best wishes and your congratulations and everything. That was really nice of you. Anyway, on with the show. And as I said earlier, I've not had so much time, so this year it's a rundown of not just some of the best things from this year, but the best things from any year in the Scottish independence movement. But of course, before beginning any compilation of that sort, we'll have to break to go over to hear the news where you are.
That's all from us. Now it's time for the news where you are. The news where you are comes after the news where we are. The news where we are is the news. It comes first. The news where you are is the news where you are. It comes after. We do not have the news where you are. The news where you are may be news to you, but it is not news to us. The news may be international, national, or regional. The news where we are may be international news. The news where you are is never international news. Where you are is not international. The news where you are comes after the international and national news. The news where you are may be national news or regional news. However, national news where you are is not national news where we are. It is the news where you are. If the news where you are is national news, it is only national where you are. The news where we are is national wherever you are. On Saturdays, there is no news where you are. In fact, there is no news where you are on Saturdays. Any news there is not where you are. It is where we are. If there is news where you are but not where we are, it will wait until Sunday. After the news where you are comes the weather. The weather where you are is not national. The weather where you are comes after the news where you are, and after the weather where you are comes the national weather. Do not confuse the national weather with the weather where you are. The weather where you are comes first, but is lesser weather than the national weather. Extreme weather is news. However, weather that is more extreme where you are than where we are is not news. Weather that is extreme where we are is news, even if extreme weather where we are is only average weather where you are. On average, weather where you are is more extreme than weather where we are. Tough shit. Good.
And that piece of brilliance was, of course, James Robertson. Next up is former MSP Duncan Hamilton, and this one just gets me going every time.
The second thing I was looking forward to was hearing a positive case for the Union. I've devoted more of my life to the case for Scottish independence. I've listened to more of these debates probably than anyone else here. And one of the defining features of it has always been that there is a case, like it or not, a positive case for independence that has been constructed. Usually there has been nothing other than smears and fears, too poor, too stupid, out of time, isolation. We've heard it all. I see before me here 4 gentlemen I know and respect. I'm sorry, 3 down. And what I look forward to above everything else was to get an intelligent argument today, an acceptance that there is some onus on them to say that the Union is changing and therefore we say that this is the right model. Now let's just remember what that looks like, because Mr Blessing said that I would look at context, and I want to do that. And actually, Mr Lally gives me the in. One of his heroes, Keir Hardie. Let's just remember some of the history here. An election address in 1888, where Keir Hardie says the Scottish Parliament is just round the corner. 100 years later, with the usual Scottish Labour speed, we find ourselves with the claim of right, nothing's happened. We move from there, and just think about the passage of time and how this quickens. We move from the claim of right and the Constitutional Convention, which incidentally enshrines the sovereignty of the Scottish people. We move forward to a referendum in 1997, a Scottish Parliament in 1999. We get to something that was never meant to happen, an SNP government in 2007, the first ever. We then have a national conversation on the future of independence, a referendum bill. Not yet, I'll finish this first. We then have a response from the Unionists, finally a thinking response, apparently, of Cailean in 2008. Then we have, of course, a game changer in 2011, because what happens in 2011 is that the SNP break the bank. They do what's arithmetically almost impossible and get a majority under the Scottish Parliament system of voting. And then we get a reaction to that again. On the fuel of the fear of independence, you get a Scotland bill that was then meant to be the final line in the sand. And then this morning, we get Douglas Alexander, who tells us that that bill's now irrelevant because they think they have to go even further towards devolution max. That is the pace of change that that side of the House don't recognise. And what matters here, and I'll take Mr Sneeder in a minute, what matters here is that we don't put independence against we just think it's all wrong. I want to hear from you, Mr Sneeder. You're a bright man. Give me a vision of Scotland that is current, that's relevant, that to the people in the gathering means something, as opposed to the technocratic rubbish we've had so far.
Mr Speaker, sir, the Scottish people do deserve better, and they do deserve a vision of what this country is and what it will be. And that vision starts very simply with this. For many years, Scottish people have been at the forefront of shaping the United Kingdom. Right. For many people, the empire that you discarded and said was all wrong, the Scots were architects of many parts of the empire. And if you look at the last government, whether you like it or not, there were 23 ministers from this country. You ask for it, you will listen for it. We are at the centre of the United Kingdom. We are shaping a country that is the heart of Europe. That is what we are about. And all you're doing is saying about it.
Enough. This comes back to the leadership class argument. Now, just because you two are in the leadership class doesn't mean the rest of us have to buy into it. You can take the fat cat Goffert greed and say, well, that's great, we're Scottish, therefore that proves we should never be independent. The whole point about successful Scots throughout the ages is it proves the point that Scotland can be independent. You can't play that in aid. You cannot play that. Sit down. You can't play that in aid of an argument for the Union. That's an argument for why we should be independent, not an argument for the status quo. No, thank you. Sit down. Let's bear in mind where the rest of these parties are, because this debate to people outside will seem odd, that we're not talking about what the parties are actually saying at the moment. The Tories in Scotland are split down the middle between a leader who just lost by a couple of hundred votes, who has a career backing fiscal autonomy, full fiscal autonomy. The Lib Dems, of course, had a Steele Commission that backed full fiscal autonomy, and now, of course, they were a bit startled by that. And there's another thing that's been set up under Ming Campbell, which is now to look at what comes next, the bit beyond the Scotland Bill. What we take from that is this bill's not even through the UK Parliament, and it's already out of date. That's the speed of change you don't recognise. No, actually. The argument seems to be... Not really. The argument about the Arc of Prosperity, I think, has been very well dealt with in this side of the House. Well, it has, because the facts are the facts, and they tell you that in terms of GDP per capita, you're simply wrong. They're all above. It also tells you... let's just have a think about this question of why would you do this? Well, here's one reason. You're going to have more money. Why? Because you're going to be with the share of North Sea oil and gas. Well, just because... Sorry, which country in the world has got 90% of North Sea oil revenues and wouldn't count that as an asset or count it into the calculation about wealth? That's just silly. Just silly. When you go consulting with different companies, including just as well, because I was so scared, Kevin. So when you went consulting, when you go consulting with all these companies, you say to them, "I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll look at your books and we'll look at your liabilities, and oh my God, it's all over for you. Well, what about the assets? No, I know there's £1 trillion of oil left, but we can't count that. Nobody in their right mind would count that, Kevin, would they? No, they wouldn't get a job at McKinsey. Why? I don't know." And then, just one last argument, which we can't leave Mr Lally alone on this one, because he said that the real reason we should not become independent is because we would leave England stuck with 50 years of Tory rule. So now the best argument for Scotland not being independent is because the English, when they get up to vote, can't be bothered voting in somebody else. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Mr Speaker, well, introspection might be an idea for you, maybe after the debate. Mr Speaker, sir, the whole point about this argument is that there is now there's now constructed in Scotland an argument that says, here is a window of opportunity, and as Mr Blessing says, it is for all of the parties, all of us. It's not just for the politicians. This is a referendum. It's about the people. You get a vote, and 3 out of 4 of these people aren't even qualified to vote in the referendum. It's about the people, and it's about choices, and it's about rational, reasoned choices. You've heard a case on this side, a positive vision. You've heard nothing on that side to displace that. And on that basis alone, Mr Speaker, I beg to move.
Right, just 1 or 2 more for this show. And I think this definitely has to go down as Speech of the Year. This is Mary Black.
I should warn conference first of all that I'm still suffering from a bit of a cough actually, but I think the sign behind me is quite sturdy. So no, I just want to start straight off by saying that I was grateful and humbled to be elected again. And the first question that I was asked after my election was how I felt about losing some votes to Labour and reducing my majority. And I gave the honest answer, which still is, I don't actually mind. People voted for a Labour manifesto which nicked half our current policies and previous manifesto pledges anyway. So I don't say that as a cheap dig. I'm not interested in the political games of parties. I'm genuinely grateful that we seem to have won opponents around to some of our beliefs and ideas. And I know that most people in this room would probably agree with me when I say that Jeremy Corbyn and I actively agree on quite a lot of things, which is why I hope what I'm about to say is taken with the sincerity with which it's intended. I am so disappointed with Jeremy Corbyn. So disappointed. Yes, he may be an opponent, but I was heartened to see Jeremy Corbyn elected as leader of the Labour Party because I thought finally someone normal and sensible to work with in London. But instead, we've got more of the same London spin and nothing more than talking a good game. If you're going to call for an end to austerity, don't release a manifesto scrapping only £2 billion out of a total £9 billion worth of planned Tory cuts. Don't tell the vulnerable that you're fighting for them while you choose to keep 78% of Tory cuts. Don't tell young people that you'll scrap tuition fees but then turn a blind eye to Labour who hike them up in Wales. Don't tell us you're different and then still sign up to waste billions of pounds in nuclear weapons. Don't come to Scotland like so many before you and condescend us by claiming that the Scottish Government, with 15% of welfare powers, can somehow undo Tory austerity when your party voted against devolving the real powers that matter. But most of all, conference, don't dare spread fear and utter drivel about an independent Scotland meaning we would suffer turbo austerity. Because while you're doing that, our Scottish Government is saddled with paying £453.8 million mitigating and protecting people from the very worst of the Tory policies that we never voted for in the first place. And they have a cheek to say it's our fault.